Hello and welcome to Conversations. I'm your host, Robin Torres. Our guests today are Adam Ehlert and Brian Bruce, both of the Kansas City T-Bones baseball team. Adam, owner of the T-Bones, is a transplant to Kansas, having moved the not-yet-named T-Bones from Minnesota in the fall of 2002. In the months outside the T-Bone season, Adam and his wife Heather enjoy rooting for the Kansas Jayhawks. Adam is a graduate of that other basketball powerhouse, American University in Washington, D.C. Away from Community America Ballpark, Adam serves on the Turf Council, the board of Providence St. John Foundation, serves as a charter member of the Village West Rotary Club on its board of directors, and is president for the 2010-11 year. Brian Bruce became the voice of the T-Bones prior to the 2010 season. He is a Rockhurst High School alumni and earning a bachelor's degree from Marquette University and a master's from the University of Kansas. Brian began his sports broadcasting career on the radio. Brian is a huge Marquette Eagles basketball fan, and he will always be a loyal Chiefs, Royals, and T-Bones fan. Brian is excited to be living his dream of being a broadcaster in professional sports and is thrilled to be doing so in his hometown. Welcome, Kansas City Community College, Adam and Bruce. Thank you for being here with us today.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, so tell us, Adam, what was the process of moving the T-Bones to Kansas?
Well, it was I'll say a fun process, especially after 8 years. I can look back at it as being fun. We selected Kansas City for a number of reasons, mostly the size of the market and the warmth of the market, and I mean that in two different ways, and I'll get to that in a moment. But mostly and most specifically because of Kansas City's rich baseball heritage. We have a major league team, the Royals, across town, and we are all Royals fans, but also with the significance of the Negro Leagues and their history here. And the parallel that I'm particularly fond of is that the Negro Leagues really were the original independent baseball, which is what the T-Bones are. So those are the reasons we selected Kansas City, and we're thrilled to be here. Now we're entering our 9th season. How we moved or chose to move, I will address, a couple of funny stories, most specifically weather-related, and that's particularly prescient here on this snowy winter day. We moved the team from northern Minnesota, from a city called Duluth, Minnesota. Duluth is right on the edge of Lake Superior. Lake Superior is a very cold and the deepest of the Great Lakes. The water never gets above 40 degrees, meaning the surrounding air doesn't very often get real warm. It's tough to operate a summer business in a city like Duluth, mostly because of the weather. It was also a smaller industrial city, and jobs were leaving the city. Long story short, our last year there we had 3 nights called on account of fog. Pretty tough to play baseball when you can't see the center fielder. We also had nights on a regular basis where coffee outsold beer, and so tough for us to make a living doing that. And again, finally, weather related, I wore wool socks to the ballpark more often than not. So after many years here in Kansas City, it can be 90 degrees all summer long, and I will never complain.
Okay. Now, the T-Bones, there are different leagues. The T-Bones is in an independent league. So tell us what the difference between the major, minor, and independent league is.
Great question. Again, we are professional baseball, but we are independent professional baseball, meaning we're not a farm team for anyone. Certainly, or specifically not for the Royals across town. The difference in a farm team is they are charged with player development for the parent club. An independent team, we're not involved in developing players, although that does happen rather naturally over the course of a season. We typically have 4 or 5 or 6 players whose contracts get purchased by an organization. But the difference that you'll see day to day is our players are here to win. So there's less focus on a prospect being developed to be able to play several years from now, and the focus really is how do we assemble 22 or 23 guys that can help us win today, tomorrow, and next month, and win a championship this year.
Good, good. I want to focus on you, Brian. Brian, for just a moment. Now, you are a native Kansas Citian.
That's right.
From Rockhurst High School, and then going on to Marquette. What is your involvement in sports at all?
I grew up playing sports my whole life. My dad was a big influence in my life, overall, but also in the sports realm. He was a long-time head basketball coach in Kansas City area for 20 years in St. Joseph, Missouri. Starting out of college, he was at Bishop LeBlond and then went to Bishop Ward here in this area, and then Rockhurst High School for 14 years. So I grew up around basketball in general and sports and going to every practice and every game when I was a tiny little kid running around, just kind of always at the gym with my dad. And then it wasn't just that's what he coached, but it was also all sports. He played college baseball. He played in the Van Johnson leagues. He was a really good pitcher. So I grew up playing baseball, and I had my own personal hitting coach at home, who knew my swing better than I did. And so I grew up around sports like that. And my dad not only played sports and coached sports, but he shares that passion for sports. So I pretty much I love sports, but pardon me, but I had no choice. But I grew up in that household, and that was just the way it is in the Bruce household, that you love sports. My grandma loves sports. Everybody does. So I grew up around that, and then I played sports all through my youth. And then at Rockhurst High School, I played basketball, football, and baseball freshman year, and then focused on baseball and played varsity baseball there. So I just grew up around sports. As far as kind of the rules and knowing how the game is played in basketball, football, baseball, these different sports, it just kind of came naturally because you're around them all the time and you're talking to people who know everything about them, coaches or your dad. So it was kind of just fostered a love for sports. And then early on I decided, I know that I want to be a broadcaster.
I was going to ask you about that because you have this voice. When did you decide that broadcasting was something you wanted to get into?
I remember thinking that. Actually, even when I was a kid, when I would play, baseball in my driveway, I would commentate on the game when I was playing it, and I would call the game while I was playing it, or you'd recreate a moment like a dramatic home run or something that would win the game, and you'd hit the home run, but you'd also call it how the broadcaster would call it. So I remember doing that, but then when it became a real thing was probably in high school, when you're looking at colleges and what are you going to major in, and I just knew I wanted to be around sports my whole life. And I guess everyone's dream, Adam's, mine, and every other little boy in America, pretty much, I wanted to play Major League Baseball, but about 1% of 1% is good enough to do that. So quickly you learn I'm not going to be able to do that, and how else am I going to be involved? And truth be told, using my personality or my communication skills and being around sports is better for me than trying to play them anyway. So,
do you think your family environment, being in sports, help you understand the nuances of the game?
Oh yeah, like I said, just sort of being around my dad my whole life and the Bruce family, they all just love sports. Have been around sports. When my dad was playing college baseball, my grandma and grandpa were at every game. My dad played basketball and baseball at St. Benedict's, now Benedictine and Atchison. So, just being around him my whole life, it wasn't like I ever remember sitting down and saying, okay, these are the rules of the game and you have to, learn these. It was just you just sort of, it sort of came to you because you're around it so much. So, whereas other people might not understand the rules of sports, it's just sort of for me, it was a natural thing to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk more about the T-Bones team in just a moment. We'll be right back.